Hello YouTube, welcome back to another edition of ManCave Astronomy. Today we're going to make our new telescope holding device, and I told you in the previous video, one thing that we had happen was we broke our band clamp, and I'm going to go ahead and fix that. And I figured while I was fixing that, it'd be kind of cool to go ahead and do a video and show you how I made this. And I got this idea from Astronomy Shed. My guy's got one on his scope. Basically, he kind of gave me an idea of what it was that he used. And basically it consists of a band clamp and just some, this is garage door seal that you get from the hardware store. You can pick up your band clamps there. That's what it looks like. I've got this piece cut, and basically it's just, you know, double-sided. It's got a lip on both sides and a nice good flat area that we can put our band clamp to. And basically all you do is just roll you out a piece, go all the way around the scope, mark it, cut it, and then you take a good sharp pair of scissors and cut off the large flap of the two. So this one's got a real nice, about a 1/4 inch tall one. This one over here is like 5/8, 3/4 tall. Want to get rid of that? You just want to cut it right down that edge right there. It makes a real nice good cut seam. And then what you do, once you get your seal cut and it's measured for the circumference of your telescope, you just slap it on there like that, and you see how that 1/4 inch edge just sits right against your mounting rings. And it doesn't really want to sit on there very well. You just kind of get it on there like that, and you need to measure the circumference here, and you need to go to your hardware store and pick you up 2 banding clamps. These are just stainless steel band clamps, about $2 a piece. For the 10-inch model, I use a 4 1/16 to a 5-inch band clamp, and you just undo it, pull it open, kind of flatten it out a little bit. And then the second piece was a 6 1/16 to 7-inch band clamp. Just put the two together, and it gives you two little adjustments right here. And I'm gonna have to take it apart. Got my nut driver here. We'll take this guy apart. You always want to probably use a nut driver, not a flat screwdriver. 5/16 nut driver is what you need. The reason you don't want to use a flat tip screwdriver, because when you get to turning it, they don't really want to sit in a little slot very well, and then the last thing you want to do is scratch up the outside of your telescope and make a rust spot for this thing to start rusting on you. So use a nut driver and a interchangeable little screwdriver deal. Makes it a lot easier, as you'll soon see. Now I'm going to put the seam right here, like that. And actually I'm going to trim just a fuzz off of this guy. Just a nice, let's turn around here. Let's do the other side. There we go. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to trim just a little bit off so they overlap a little bit. Not quite as much. And just like that. There. They ought to overlap a little better now. And, just let that fall down on the floor. Your dog will probably eat it. And you can see now when we pull this thing together fairly snug, they touch, but they're not, you don't get a, actually I'll probably take off just a shave more. Let's see, I'll cut this one a little straighter here. Definitely doesn't have to be perfect. That should fit real nice. Get going the right way here. nice good deal, and they meet up nicely. Now we take our band clamps and just loop it around like that. Get it started. And the other adjuster there. Get it started, and you can position this thing any way you want. Usually I like for mine to be, my little adjusters to be somewhere where they're kind of easy to get to in case I gotta loosen it up and move it. I don't want my gap all the way at the bottom, just so it's kind of out of sight, more or less. And you can see how that garage seal really kind of grabs onto the finish, but it doesn't, definitely won't hurt it. We'll put a gap right there where our mount ring is, and we'll turn our band clamp around here where we can get to our adjusters. And one adjuster is going to be right where the gap is. We're going to tighten that one up first. Make sure that it gets together. Actually, let's off space that a little bit. Let's bring it about 4 inches around to the other side. We'll get that one started good, and we'll take our nut driver here, and we'll get this one snugged up good. And I thought of another cool little trick we're going to try and see how it works. Yeah, the biggest thing you want to do is make sure I'll probably change these a little bit once I get it all set back up in the mount. But one thing that you want to do is make sure you don't have these band clamps to a place where you can catch yourself. Because little ends sticking out are sometimes sharp. We'll just snug them down. I got that one pretty good little bit of adjustment, so we'll go ahead and tighten this one up. Actually snug the scope, and just about 2 finger tight is about all you want. As a matter of fact, let's loosen this one so that way we don't have to make such a big movement. We need to adjust this ring, and you just want that guy kind of snug on there, just about like so. Now that we got that set, one thing I did the other night was when I broke this, I had my 40mm eyepiece set in. I had everything balanced out really well, and what you'll see is here in just a second is once I got everything balanced, and of course I broke the band clamp like I said, and I lost my hold seal. So what I did was I made 2 little Sharpie marks here where my rings were, as a reference point whenever I put my seal back on. What that basically does is use this seal basically to hold the scope in the rings, and then you can loosen the rings so they're not so tight. You can actually turn the scope to where the eyepiece is more viewable without actually shaking the mount around really bad. And you know, a lot of people really crank these things down tight, and once they are, you know, set in there, you know, the scope can't be moved anyway. So if you are scope angled out like this, looking over, out in the western sky with the eyepiece down where you can see it, by the time you slew that scope all the way up and over, it's going to be really hard because your eyepiece is going to be way up here where it's going to be hard to look through. So that's kind of the purpose of why we use this ring, is let the scope be moved in the rings without keeping everything so clamped down, and get that eyepiece around where you can look through it, have a little more comfortable viewing. The other thing I'm going to do with it, back to what I was saying before, let's see how good of a picture I can get you of those. You can see the 2 little, looks like a little bird there, little Sharpie marks. And you can't see the other one because of the rings covering it. that we just put back on. One thing we are going to do that I'm going to try out is, as we get some bigger and nicer eyepieces, we're going to take a Sharpie and just make a mark here, you know, a mark right here, and we'll write 40 millimeter here with a mark, and that will tell me where I need to put this ring to what eyepiece I use. And all I'll have to do is clamp these down, get my little nut driver out, loosen it up, slide the ring up, and I'll have like a 40 millimeter little line, 32 millimeter little line, and different things to make balancing out the scope. Because as you change out your eyepieces, you're also changing the weight of the scope and the balance point of the scope. So you want to try to keep it back in balance and everything. So we're going to try that as I get a few more eyepieces and things like that, and you know, see how that works out, and see if we can kind of help keep this thing in balance a little bit. And basically, the first time I put the eyepiece in, I'll have to balance everything out, make a mark, label it, and everything. But like that 40 millimeter eyepiece, you know, like I said before, you know, this dude weighs, you know, this dude's pushing probably 2 pounds. You know, you can just see, you know, when you put that in the end of it, this thing just really gets nose heavy. And that was the mark. That's why I put those marks on there. You can see with a, you know, it's almost the same size as a beer can. So, you know, that thing's really got some weight in it, and you know, that's why we put the marks there. Just kind of less time having to, you know, if I go down to a 10 millimeter eyepiece that's 1.25 inches, or a 9 millimeter eyepiece that's 1.25 inches, you know, now my weight is completely changed because I don't have this almost 2 pounds sitting in there. I've got only, you know, that sitting in there, which is a standard 9, I think that's a 6 millimeter eyepiece that weighs nothing, versus, you know, that guy right there. So you know, that puts a lot of you know, balancing onto the motors and makes the motors work hard. Like I said, the last thing we want to do is burn up a motor in these mounts. That was something I was always cautioned on whenever I was looking into these years ago and stuff like that. So hopefully that's going to work, and we'll kind of play with that and see how it goes, and I'll keep you updated. And you know, once I get some more nicer eyepieces that are highly expensive, you know, we'll keep you up to date and let you know how that turns out. So that is our scope mounting ring. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this guy in the mount here real quick. We're not going to really move it around, so to speak, but what we are going to do is I'll show you exactly how those rings, what the ring exactly does to this. Get it right, grab a hold to it here. Put it up there. As you can see, we've got our scope mounted up, and my camera sitting there, can't exactly see it. Alright, now what we're going to do is we're just going to unloosen the lock rings here just a little bit, and as you can see, the scope's not going anywhere. I hate when those things do that. They thread into the, I don't know why they threaded that other piece, but there we go. Now, however, I would not advise doing this if your scope is sitting directly up, that seal ring is not going to hold that scope. But as you can see, that's what it does. It allows me to just put the scope up there and holds the scope so I can get the clamp rings on. And that's the purpose of it. And the other thing is, you see how our eyepiece is up at a point where we can't look through it. I'm gonna go ahead and put the lock rings back on because I did not want to finish out my video series here on YouTube with me dropping this 10-inch telescope. So we're just gonna, you know, basically the other nice, the dual part of that ring is to, when you got the scope, when you get everything set up, you know, you just swing open your deals here. One person, you can just set the scope up there and it'll hold itself, and then you can get your lock rings put on and mounted down. And what you want to do is just get around here with some better light. You just want to snug these guys down just a little bit, about 2 finger tight, I like to call it. And just snug. You know, like I said, it's. And then if you ever need to move it, just back those off, and you can take your scope. Let's set the camera down here. You probably can't see it, but I'll show you. You just take your scope, turn it just like that with 2 hands, and there you go. And just readjust, just ever so slightly. And then, let's say you move, you slew to a point where you can't see through your deal. See, it doesn't take much to lock that thing in, so you just half around, turn it, set it, and just half around it back in. That felt really grabs a hold of that thing. So hopefully you'll like that. I like it. I think it's really cool. It really helps me get the scope set up without having somebody to help me, you know, hold the scope and get the lock rings and the thing not slide out. And basically, once you get it all balanced, you move your ring, your seal ring, to a balance spot, and you know, you're pretty much, you know, your scope's back in the balance point. And you can also turn the scope. You can also turn the scope in the rings so you can get a better viewing position without doing a whole lot, you know, completely loosening the scope sliding down, and then now you're all out of balance. So there it is. Hope you enjoyed it.